He is a household name in Los Angeles and beyond. Radio and television, he dominates. It's Dodgers, it's UCLA Bruins, it's Raiders, it's more. It's Tim Cates, also executive producer of Petros and Money on AM 570 LA Sports. He is on Twitter at Tim Cates. He is a national treasure. I'm Bryan Fenley, and I'm an anchor at FSR. Tim, I know you're a busy guy. You've got a whole lot going on with the Dodgers right now. I really appreciate it. And the first thing I wanted to ask you was, when did you first suspect the Astros were cheating?
When did I first suspect?
Yes.
I'll be honest with you. I go back to Game 5 when Clayton Kershaw was up 4-0, and then it was a 7-4 lead, I think it was, and it turned out to be that long marathon game, which the Astros just kept coming back, and then the Dodgers tied in. They went to extra innings, and they ended up losing Game 5, which was pivotal because the Dodgers could have gone up with a chance to go back home, needing one win, either Game 6 or 7. At that point, you had to start wondering, like, wait a second. Clayton Kershaw's had his problems in the postseason, but twice he gives up 3-run leads in a game, and the way they were just teeing off on the Dodgers pitchers, especially in that game, it's like, wait a second, something doesn't seem right. I know it's a short left field at Minute Maid Park and ball flies out easy, but it just kind of felt like, wait a second, something's not right. And then you kind of moved on, like, all right, maybe it's just Kershaw again in the postseason. Maybe it's just the Astros are really that good of a team. Granted, they were really good during the regular season, and then, of course, we find out why they were so good. But now you kind of think about it, there was a little bit of a red flag in that Game 5.
How do you think Kershaw felt when he found out, and everybody else, that what the Astros were doing to him wasn't exactly legal? Because, look, as you know better than anybody, Tim, there are a lot of people that were criticizing Kershaw and giving him all this flack for not being able to produce under pressure.
Yeah, I think if you're Clayton, you're starting to wonder, well, were other teams cheating the other years? Because he had problems in 13, he had problems in 14, he had problems in 16, he had problems going into that 17 postseason as well. So it wasn't just a one-time thing for him, but you have to start wondering, okay, well, maybe they got the best of me because they were cheating. But the problem is, if you're Kershaw and you move forward to 18 and you have problems in the postseason against the Red Sox, and then last year we all know what happens with the back-to-back home runs to Rendon and Soto, and then losing Game 5, the way they did to the Nationals, it's just like it never stops. Yeah. And at some point, you feel bad for the guy, and you also wonder, I mean, he's really good April through September. Why is it that when the calendar flips to October, like he turns into a pumpkins in some games? And it's not every game. He's certainly had a lot of good games in October, but going back to Game 1 against this in the wild card round against the Brewers, or Game 2, excuse me, first game he pitched, the 13 strikeouts, the 8 innings, getting into this next round of the NLDS, you just kind of hope that maybe he's turned a corner. And hearing some of his comments, Brian, it's kind of fun. Yeah. He's having a good time. He was laughing when Dave Roberts was coming out of the dugout to get him in the 8th inning. And he's like, no, don't come get me. And he started laughing. He was having a good time on the mound. Afterwards, he said he realized, hey, he didn't have a good outing before that against the Angels, his final one of the regular season. And a stubborn Clayton Kershaw would have just kept going through his routine, but he changed his routine a little bit. So let's hope he's changed in October.
I think if there's anybody that we need to root for, it's Clayton, because of what he's gone through. And we love to see this. Tim Cates is with us. He's on Twitter at Tim Cates. What is it about working in sports radio, Tim, that's most therapeutic for you?
You get to digest what's happened, right? Good and bad, the night before, that morning of, the day of, whatever it is, and you get to talk about it. So it's therapeutic, right? Or you get to talk to somebody about it, or you can talk to the listeners and fans about it. So imagine, going to your job and all of a sudden something good and bad happens with your team that you like or you follow, or you happen to be watching that game, the Monday night game or whatever, the NBA Finals, and then being able to go to that sports bar and talk about it with everybody, good and bad, get everything off your chest, get everything out there, vent, if you will, or celebrate, whatever the case may be. And then the next day you go back to what you were doing. It's the same thing in sports talk radio. Is on a daily basis, it's different. So one day you're celebrating, the next day it's the agony of defeat. One day you're celebrating a Kershaw. The next day it's like, can Kenley Jansen ever close out another game? To Max Muncy's the greatest, Game 3 home run again, 18 innings against the Red Sox, to now he can't even hit his weight in the 2020 season, and he's batting, cleanup for the Dodgers. It's that up and down, the daily grind, the daily change of it, which is so funny. And there's no other job. I mean, outside of being a first responder, like a firefighter or a police officer, and I'm not putting this in the same level because those guys, what they do are they're, what they do is awesome. And that's a different level. But the day-to-day change is what I'm saying is very similar. They don't know what they're going to face every day. And for sports talk radio, for the media and for that matter, for TV, for the sports centers, the Fox Sports ones, again, it's different every day, and when that's good. You're not just punching a clock. You're not just going in there 9 to 5 and, going over paperwork and receipts and going over tax forms or whatever the daily grind of a job is, which is fine, but it's just different. What makes it so much fun.
And it gives you that opportunity, like you were saying, to vent. Whether it was a good game or a bad game, you have that platform. How often does your wife tune into your radio broadcasts when you're on the air?
I don't think she does anytime.
Why not?
Yeah, I think she's tuned in one time in the last 6 months.
Okay.
And she's got different platforms to do it. I mean, it could be Dodgers pre or post. It could be when I'm filling in with Petros and Money, like I'm doing later today with Matt Money Smith. Whether it's the morning show that we're going to be doing again with Steve Stacks, to UCLA stuff, to Raider games. I mean, I don't think she's listened to a Raider game, and I don't know. I can't even tell you the last time she's probably listened to me do pre-halftime and post-game and talk to Brent Musburger, going in and out of sports up there, scoreboards and stuff. I think that they're just they look at it as a job. My wife and my girls. I got 3 girls. 2 of them are in high school. One's in middle school now. And they like the perks of meeting people. They like the perks of going to games. When I'm able to, get tickets, buy tickets, be able to get that for them. But at the same time, they live their own lives, and I'm gone. I come home. It's like, hey, who won the game? It's like, you don't know? Like, the Raiders won. Like they beat the Saints on Monday night. Like, didn't you watch the game? It's like, no, the girls had homework. We're too busy getting ready for an AP history test for my oldest daughter. It's like, they live their own lives, and I come home all excited. It's like, yeah, the Dodgers just clinched the division for the 8th straight year. And she's like, oh, okay, well, can you take the girls to practice tomorrow morning? It's like, they don't care. It's just dad. It's just, I'm the husband. They're used to it now. I don't know if it's jaded or what, but they're just used to the fact that my job is my job, and, it happens to be in sports. Now, I'll tell you what she does care about is when we go to, like, gatherings with other couples or families, and it's, every dad is, wants to talk to you. And
yeah.
What about the Dodgers? And like, hey, man, you think is this we're going to get college football anytime soon? Or what do you think, man? You think coronavirus is going to shut down the world? It's like, my wife looks at me like, go ahead, you can talk.
She knows.
So that's the other perk of it.
I was going to ask you if any of your daughters have ever tried to give you advice on the air, or something where they've said, Daddy, you should have said this, or you should have said that. But then, by the way you explain how much they actually listen, perhaps they haven't done that recently. Would you say that? Or would they ever come to you and say, why did you say that? Or you should have said it that way?
They have a couple of times. My middle daughter, who's very much the sportsy daughter that I have, whereas my older daughter now plays sports with her, but she was into dance early on. And my youngest daughter could care less about the world of sports. And my middle daughter, Layla, would very much, not so much now, but would tell me like, hey, I heard you say this about this person, or, and it's more questioning and inquisitive and wanting to know more, because she doesn't follow it every day, or she doesn't know the background of a Clayton Kershaw's postseason, or where a guy like Max Muncy came from, or Justin Turner, what he came from in 2013, and his career took off. She just doesn't have that background because she's not old enough, so she's asking about it. But critiquing wise, it's been a while since my wife or daughters have actually criticized. I did get a text a few months ago, maybe it's all blends together now. Maybe it's way longer than that, where one of my daughters told me to stop yelling on a post-game show. She gave me the thumbs down emoji and said, stop yelling, bring it down. So that's the last piece of work or criticism I got from them about work.
Tim Cates is with us. I'm Bryan Fenley. Tim, your work is so good. It doesn't need any perfecting. It already is there. What's the difference between how you produce Petros and Money and the way that David Vassay once did?
A lot, because Dave, to his credit, is the one was with them from the get-go and got them going, got them used to each other, got them in the flow. And these are two guys that come from two different backgrounds and bring two different styles to sports talk radio, both with a passion for sports, obviously. But Dave was the one who got him going and really kind of helped mold them together. And to their credit, they didn't need a lot, but just it's keeping them together and keep them on track. And his credit, he did that for the first 6 years, and I kind of jumped on board halfway through and just kind of took what Dave had already kind of helped form and a lot of their benchmarks that they already had established. And my job was basically just don't ruin it, don't mess it up, Don't come in here and think you're going to reinvent the wheel with these guys, because they had somebody come in one time on a one-day basis to fill in and wrote him a whole dissertation about what they needed to change of their show. And it's like, you don't get it. It's not like a Lee Hacksaw Hamilton type show, which is great. It's a different style.
Yeah.
It's a different way of delivering sports talk. It's a different way of presenting information and talking and digesting what's happening in the world of sports. And it's not for everybody, but at the same time, it's different. And that's what's so great about it. So my job was just to take what Dave kind of had helped form and their benchmarks that they kind of helped go and develop. And to Petros and Money's credit, they do a lot of that stuff themselves and develop a lot of that stuff themselves. So it's helped just formulate it, help put it together, help produce it, and put things together with opens and making sure that the facts are there and supporting those guys. They don't just walk in and, expect everything to be done and, aren't hands-on. They're very much emailing, texting during the day. Hey, I'm going to need this. Hey, can we find this person? Let's make sure we get this person on this week. Can you help me find this information? Hey, do you know this? It's a lot of that. And that, to Dave's credit, is something that he started. And, my job was, as Don Martin said, my man, just don't mess it up. Don't screw it up. Keep it going. So I've just kind of felt like I've kept that train on the tracks for as long as it's gone now, and hopefully it keeps going.
Yeah, it's been so successful so for so long. What is it about the way you do things and the way this show has gone that it's had such a way over the LA community, and that it's been so embraced for so many years, and it's just the following is just astronomical as to how many people listen in?
Yeah, and I think that's a credit to Petros and Money, and the fact that their style is different, and that way it does touch a lot of people and reach a lot of people. Whereas if you are a numbers, a stats guy, if you are hey, we're breaking down game one of the NBA finals, Lakers shot this percentage, the Heat shot this, they didn't get back on defense and this and that, and you're just looking at the analytics and you want to hear that, that's fine, and that's what you're interested in. That's just not what Petros and Money are about. Other shows are about that, and that's great, because there's different shows for everybody and different outlets for everybody to do that. But I think Petros and Money give you a little bit of that. They give you a little bit of the fun breakdown. They give you the sarcastic breakdown. They give you the everyday guy breakdown, and talking about Kershaw and his postseason struggles. They have fun with it. Are the Dodgers ever going to win a World Series and playing Quando, 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 the song, win, 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 and are they going to win again? So they have fun with it, poke a little bit at the teams, poke a little bit at the players, give LeBron a little bit of a hard time about his hair. It's sort of needling, keeping the guys in check, not taking it overly serious, because let's face it, the fans want the teams to win, but they have no say in whether the Lakers go 3 of 19 from 3 in the first half or shoot 80% from the free throw. They have no control. You can talk about all you want, so you can have fun and talk about how a guy stinks at the free throw line or whatever. So they do a pretty good job at that. And I think the biggest thing for those guys is they don't just touch one group of people. And I say that because LA is such a melting pot with so much diversity of people, ethnicities, age groups, sections of the city, whether it's Orange County, the San Gabriel Valley, the West Side, the Valley, the Latino community, the African American community, the men 25 to 54 demographic, which Sports Talk Radio goes after. Even women, Dodger fans who are women who love Petros and Money because they have fun. And I think that's the biggest thing is they really do kind of, put their hands all over all of Southern California. And our summer tours are a couple in Orange County. We try to hit the South Bay. We don't go to the Valley as much anymore just because of the locations and some of the sponsorship obligations. But we get out to Rancho Cucamonga, the IE. You touch the San Gabriel Valley. You get out to North Orange County, Buena Park area, Diamond Bar. I mean, they make sure to touch everybody. And sometimes, they'll gripe like, hey, we got to go out to Rancho Cucamonga. And literally we'll get out there, Brian. And it's different audience. It's different people that you don't see at, Monday Night Football is remote at a Hooters, Orange County. It's different people. And it's like, hey, man, I live I live in Rialto, and this is my first time ever coming to a Petros and Money remote, but I listen to you guys every day. Or, hey, I'm a driver, or I'm a UPS or a mail driver, or, hey, I go to work every day right when you guys are on, and you make my drive or I drive home better. And, it's like, oh, okay, it's pretty cool to see that, because sometimes you get in the rut of you go to the same spots, the same areas, you see the same people sometimes, but all of a sudden to see a new audience. For me, really last summer when we were doing the summer tour stops, to see that when we were at the IE, and to point out to Petros and Matt, like, hey, great example, guys. Look at the new people here, the different audience, the people who, like, you didn't even realize were listening are out there in a different part of Southern California. So to me, that's what's so great about Petros and Money. They can go anywhere in Southern California. They can go to Riviera and a golf tournament, a stiffy golf tournament, with golfers and elitists out there, and, so to speak. Or just hang out with the everyday guy, which is so cool. And that's really where they'd rather be. And, going out to Dodger Stadium as much as we did, and hopefully we get back to having more fans in stadiums soon out of Dodger Stadium, because we were going out there once a homestand, twice a homestand for the playoffs, out there before every Dodger home game. And not up in the press box, not out behind some golden or the red rope or something. Like, they're literally out there in the circle bar area in left field or in right field. And you can just come up and buy them a michelada, or they'll have a drink with you. And it's like they just touch the people, which is so cool, because it's not the case with everybody.
You're right. Relatable. And one of the most prevalent examples of the show growing, when I asked Petros about it when he came on, was the fact that when they first started and going on those tours, you had a couple people show up, but now it's like you guys are rock stars. Wherever you go, hundreds of people show up and they're asking you questions about this and that, and people are having a grand time. It's like a concert. It's like, you show up and the guys show up, and it just shows you how big of an impact you have on so many people. What is a Petros-approved embarrassing story about him off the air that jumps to mind when you think of him?
I don't know if it's necessarily embarrassing or not, but there's some. He's a character. That is for sure. But I know Fred said it with you a few weeks ago. And I spoke at Ned Coletti's Pepperdine class a week ago on a Monday night, and one of the kids in the class asked me about Petros and Money, and I said the same thing. And Fred said it to you. Petros is probably one of the smartest people that I've met, and Matt is certainly right up there as well. Petros has got I think it's a literature degree from USC. I mean, he majored like in English lit or European literature. He knows Russian literature. He can quote books. He's the kind of guy you sit there and you tell him something, and a few weeks later, like, hey, remember that? What was that one thing? He'll tell you what you'd already forgotten. He remembered, because he's got a great memory. He's just weird like that. But honestly, the first memory I have of Petros and the first interaction with Petros was about 15 years ago. I think it was about 2005, and I was doing pre and post for UCLA football, and Petros was on the call for Fox Sports West or Fox Sports Net, and it was UCLA playing somebody. I don't remember who they were playing. It was like a September-October conference game. And he's on the call, I think, with Bill McDonald. And they're calling the game, and I get very invested in UCLA games. I get very emotional, Brian. I'll put out sometimes my emotions. I got to let it get off. I throw things in the studio.
I was going to ask you about that.
And so UCLA at the time, I don't even remember the game. I don't remember who they're playing, but I remember the instance. I got so mad because I felt like Petros on the TV call was like needling UCLA and like making snide comments, it's interception. And like the way his tone was, and the way he was saying it was like he was making fun of UCLA and, had his fight on fingers up doing it like,
just pom-poms up.
Kind of that attitude. That's how I interpreted it. And I still today think it was. But and I said it on the postgame show. I'm like, hey, this arrogant guy on the TV broadcast, this Petros Papadakis guy, he's a USC homer. He's always going to be a Trojan. And his little sarcastic tone about UCLA and the way he's kind of demeaning. I was like, I can't take it. I cannot listen to him anymore. Well, somebody heard it, told him.
Oh, God.
His producer at the old Korean station, now 1540, I get in on a Monday and I got a voicemail. And it's the producer saying, hey, this is so-and-so with Petros Papadakis radio show on 1540. I know we're competitors. Hey, Petros wants you on his radio show. He heard you were saying bad things about him on the Bruin Talk on Saturday. Can you come on and talk him? And I was like, I'm going on. I'm going to call him back. And Don Martin goes, my man, don't do that. Don't do that. He goes, you're going to be on the phone. All he's going to do is yell at you and shout you down. You're not even going to get a word in. He's going to make you look like an idiot. And I'm like, that's a good point. I'm not going to get into an arguing match with Petros about this. And this is before I even met the guy. I didn't even know him really.
Oh my
God.
gosh.
So I didn't go on his show, but he's saying stuff about me. And the first day I actually kind of came across him here, I was working at night still. And I came in early, and Petros and Money were doing their show, and they had just started back in 07 and kind of getting going. And I went over to him, and I was like, hey, what's up, Petros? I'm Tim. And he goes, yeah, I know who you are. And so it was kind of funny, but we got over it real quick. But I still give him a hard time. And every so often, when like I'm in a little mood or something, he'll remind me of that little interaction.
Your relationship has mended ever since. I want to ask you about UCLA, because I know you take losses very hard, and you are a grad, so you have a lot of pride in that institution. So I want to ask you about that and covering the team. But what about Matt Money Smith? How has he changed the first time you met him to what he's become today?
When I first met Matt, they had a press conference upstairs here in our building in Burbank for iHeartRadio. And they had a press conference upstairs, and we had heard they're bringing this new afternoon show in. And it was Matt Money Smith from K-Rock, and it was Joe Grande from Power 106. And that's all we knew about him. And I wasn't really listening to K-Rock at the time in the morning. I had when I was in high school and early in college, but I kind of phased out of that little era of listening to Kevin and Bean. So I didn't really know Matt because I didn't listen to the era he was on. So we go upstairs, and Matt has his hair parted over, long. And if you go back and look at pictures 15 years ago, 05, 06, 05, 07, right around there, Matt Money Smith, you'll see it. And he had glasses, he had a beard, and he had a sports coat on, like the sports coat you would see like a poli-sci professor, in college wear, just that kind of old coat.
Yeah.
And he had an over-the-shoulder bag, and I literally thought, like, this guy could be, a political science 145 professor if I didn't know any better. And he was in the back of the room with Joe Grande, and they introduced him, and I went over to introduce myself. And this was actually a few weeks before the show had even started. And I remember coming in, I was working nights, and I would see Matt's door and light on in his office, and he was in there already working, coming in every day, even a few weeks before they were going to start the show, getting things ready, getting their instant replay machine ready with sound effects, lining up how he wants the show to sound. So he was already working weeks before that. And that kind of is how Matt is, lining things up, working early. And that really, I think, has helped Matt really get to where he's at now is that work ethic. But I've seen the guy with the jacket and the comb over and the glasses and beard to now the guy with the perfect hair, about 30 pounds lighter,
Okay.
and on NFL Network, wearing a jacket, still wearing the glasses, and doing Charger games and turned into a play-by-play guy. So it's definitely a different Matt Money Smith than I remember in 06, 07 when he came here from K-Rock and was doing post-game Laker talk.
You have been doing post-game Bruin talk, pre-game UCLA, been doing that for a long time. And when you think about you being an alum and you being a cheerleader in one aspect when you're doing these radio broadcasts, but at the same time, how do you balance that? Wanting to see the program succeed, but also being an honest evaluator of how the team is doing, and then trying to balance that when you're on the air. What is that like for you?
It's changed because early on, when I first started doing Bruin Talk many, many years ago, I got it because Don Martin took over and there was an opening for the postgame show. And we didn't really have much of a pregame show at the time. And I think it was going into basketball season. Football season already had ended. And Don's like, hey, you've done some NBA work finals for us, because I got to go cover the Lakers for NBA finals into June. And I did some stuff in the fall for media day and Laker stuff. And he's like, do you want to do post-game Bruin Talk? He's like, you're a UCLA guy. And, people who went to the school, you have credibility with that. You're invested because you got a degree that hangs from there. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I would love to do it. 2.5 years before, I'm calling games for the student station at UCLA during basketball games. I would love to do it. So, and I got that opportunity, and my emotions got to me early on in the first couple of years doing it. And I remember I made a comment about, was it Carl Durrell? Man, it might have been Durrell. I made a comment about something, an assistant coach, and I didn't say he should be fired.
Yeah.
But his coaching future kind of was put in question.
Sure.
And I kind of got fed by a caller who kind of said the same thing, like, this guy needs to go, get out of, he's terrible. We need a new offensive coordinator, wherever it was. And somebody heard that, told Don, and I kind of had to be reeled in. And he had to say, hey, I'm never going to, if you cross the line, you cross the line, that's on you. But he said, there's nothing wrong with towing the line, and there's absolutely something wrong with calling for somebody to get fired. Never do that, because you don't want people calling for your job to be fired. Don't do that to somebody else. You can get to a certain point and question them, and question maybe their coaching, or disagree with what they're doing. Certainly support them when something's going right, but don't ever call for somebody to get fired, which is the right thing, obviously.
Sure.
But I'm young and I'm emotional doing these game shows. So I definitely changed that. And so now, whether it was a great example of Steve Alford era, and that last season with Alford, which was so bad. And the writing was kind of on the wall, like, hey, they're going to go in a different direction. I can't see them keeping Alford. And every call was fire Alford, get rid of Steve Alford. It's like, well, we'll see. Hey, the program's certainly a tough time. We'll see. And, if they go in a different direction, then that's certainly on Dan Guerrero and UCLA and their direction they want to go. But, hey, let's see him coach out the season. Let's see where this program can sneak into the NCAA tournament. So that's where my tone changed. And it should. You should never call for anybody's job. But I still let the emotions get to me, Brian. It's something that's I don't know. Maybe it's my weakness is when UCLA loses, or is losing and not and looking bad. I just don't want the program to look bad.
What's the hardest you've taken a loss, whether it's football or basketball?
I think the hardest was when they went to 3 straight Final Fours and failed to win a national championship. Just because you felt like, man, that's about as close as you're going to get, and not win was so deflating. I mean, to play on that Monday night twice for a national championship to Florida and not win, it's tough. And I feel for Ben Hallen and what he did, and I mean, that's just about as good as you can get without winning a national championship. Yeah. I mean, to go to 3 straight Final Fours, to go to 2 NCAA championship games, but not to win is certainly frustrating. That's that, and the 50-0 loss was that Neuheisel's year. They lost in the white uniforms. The football team, they lost to USC 50-0. And Pete Carroll did the whole fake knee before the end of the first half. Was that Sanchez or Matt? And they did the fake knee, and then they had it thrown for a touchdown just so they can rub it in their face. That to me was pretty bad. But at the same time, the 13-9 win when they won and beat USC at the Rose Bowl, I mean, that was one of the best days ever.
How do you release your emotions during some of these? Like you were talking about earlier, how, your office, things are all over the place. Like, you really are emotionally invested in these UCLA.
I have to walk away. I have to walk away. I have to walk around the
you start pacing?
Yeah. I'll slam the desk. Unfortunately, Twitter has become an outlet in the last 4 years, but now what I do is if something's happened in the moment and I'm about to tweet it out, I'll walk away.
There you go.
I'll turn the channel, if I'm watching the game on TV, or I'll go get a coffee or a water or something. And I'll come back and should I really send that out? And I think about the repercussions.
Sure, yeah.
And the repercussions not being like I'm going to get in trouble, but more as the reaction from people on Twitter.
Yeah.
Now, Brian, it's turned into people like Petros and Money have talked about it so much. that it's turned into people who, tweet the emojis of like a volcano erupting or lava overflowing. It's like, here comes Kate's about to explode again. So I don't really want to feed into that. And then people start needling you a little bit, like, and want you to, really go over the top. So I'm on to them now. I'm on to those people.
And I think that the social media tone is like, as Jonas Knox describes it, it's like a WWE match. It's a free for all. It's just a bunch of bully tactics, and it's entertainment. It really is. And it's hard to take it personally all the time because there are the trolls out there, and it's just, it's a wild, wild west. Tim Cates, the best in the business. Follow him on Twitter at Tim Cates. Dodgers, Bruins, Raiders, TV, radio, you name it. It has been an honor. I'm Bryan Fenley. Tim, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Hey, Bryan, I was waiting for the invite. I've been watching the video.
Good.
Like, wait a second. When is Bryan going to get to me? So I'm glad we were able to do this.
I didn't want to pepper everybody at once. I just kind of wanted to slowly build it up and see if people were interested, and I'm glad that –
Hey, people are interested. People, they're a lot of fun to watch. It's great to see people who you know or maybe didn't know a lot about, or maybe didn't know something that they told a story about, or didn't know a little about their background. So these have been fun to watch. Keep it going.
Put a feeler into Money and David Vassay. Would love to get those guys on if they have the time.
You don't want to talk to Vassay. He's boring.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bryan.